Welcome to Founders Club, the show for real estate entrepreneurs. I'm up here today in Beverly Hills at the beautiful Avalon Hotel, getting ready to interview Rod Khleif.
So many people spend more time planning Christmas or a birthday party than they do designing their lives. Now, I know if you're watching Oliver here,
that's an amazing quote, by the way.
Then
he's going to tell the amazing story about how he went from losing $50 million in the crash.
But since your listener base is a little more sophisticated, let me explain why I crashed and burned. What I learned has literally saved my life.
And all the strategies that he used.
When you do your goals and you get close to achieving a big one, make sure you have other goals lined up, because it's never about the goals. The goals will push you. Happiness comes from progress and growth.
Including buying multifamily properties, syndicating properties, and growing a large portfolio that he cash flows on. Man,
Recap, yeah.
I feel like I'm ready to tear my shirt off and get to work. Let's get started. So I'm sitting here with Rod Khleif here in beautiful Beverly Hills.
It is beautiful.
It is a very beautiful place. We'll show you some footage of the hotel we're at, Avalon, where Marilyn Monroe used to come, and Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. So quite swanky place. Shout out to Michelle for finding this spot for us. One of the main reasons I wanted to have you on is because you really have a fascinating story. You've had the high highs, you've had the low lows, you've immigrated, you've overcome a lot of challenges, and now you own a really impressive portfolio of real estate. So for those that don't know you, why don't you give a little backstory?
Sure. Like you said, I immigrated to this country when I was 6 years old with my mother, Svancha, and my brother, Albert. And we ended up in Denver, Colorado, where I lived for the next 30 years. And we didn't grow up with much, Oliver. I mean, I remember I had to wear clothes from the Salvation Army and the Goodwill all the way through junior high school. You know, we had love, but we had to eat expired food, drank powdered milk, because that's literally all we could afford. And I'm sure people that are watching this or listening have had it harder than we did, but I knew I wanted more. My mom had an incredible work ethic, and she babysat kids so that we'd have enough money to eat and live a decent life. And with her babysitting money, when I was 14, she bought the house across the street for about $30,000 approximately. When I was about to graduate from high school, she told me it had gone up $20,000 in her sleep. And I'm like, what? You made 20 grand, you didn't do anything? I'm like, I'm getting into real estate. I'm gonna be rich in real estate. So I actually got my real estate broker's license when I turned 18, which will interest your listeners, because I know you have a lot of agents and brokers that listen to this. You could do it then with education. You didn't need any experience. So I was a broker right out of the gate. I wasn't an agent. I didn't make any money. I mean, I did all the things I thought you were supposed to do. I got a bus bench down at the end of the street with my ugly picture on it, and of course didn't do a thing besides make my mom proud. So I made maybe 8 grand my first year, maybe 8 to 10. My second year, maybe 10 to 12. But my third year, I made well over $100,000. So. Wow. What happened between year 2 and year 3? And that's, what I learned then and now study has literally saved my life. And what I learned was that your success in anything, I don't care what it is, if it's real estate, if it's entrepreneurship, if anything, is literally 80 to 90% your mindset and your psychology, and only 10 to 20%, the real estate mechanics or the entrepreneurship or the business development. It's really mindset. The reason I started my podcast is because while I was going through that contraction, it was the houses that pulled me down. My apartment complexes were doing just fine. If I hadn't cross-collateralized them, where I did packages of properties with the apartment complexes, I'd still have them. I started my podcast to get that message out there that if you're going to buy and hold, I recommend multifamily. It's easier, it's faster, the numbers are bigger, it's easier to scale, it's a team sport instead of on your own. So there's a lot of reasons, but I digress. But the bottom line is, figure out how much money you want from your investments while you're doing this goal setting workshop. Also want you to write down what you want to learn in your lifetime. Me, I'm going to learn how to play the drums. I'm going to learn how to fly a helicopter. Those are things I want to do. I'm going to be actually in a couple weeks. My son wrote me into this. I'm going to be jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. But anyway, so write down what you want to learn. So it's not just the stuff. And lastly, write down who you want to help. Okay, maybe you've got family you want to do things for. I bought my parents a house. I bought them a car. I took them on cruises. Who do you want to help? So write that down. And just, don't let the pen leave the paper. Just keep writing, and if you're analytical, don't stop to analyze it. You can scratch it out later. Just keep writing and writing every possible thing you can think of you could ever possibly want to do, be, or have. Then once you can't think of anything else, it's not real until it's measurable. So how many years it's going to take you to achieve each one of those goals. Put a 1, a 3, a 5, even a 10, even a 20 for that matter. I'll tell you, back when I was 18, I knew I wanted to live on the beach, and I dreamt about it. And I dreamt about it for 20 years, and I built this $8 million, 10,000 square foot house on the beach after 20 years, and I was able to do it, which was pretty much unthinkable when I was 18. So take the lid off your brain. If you imagine it, you can achieve it. Put a time limit on each goal. And remember, when you're writing that time down, and don't overthink it, just guess. But when you're writing that time down, remember that as human beings, we will overestimate what we can do in a year and massively underestimate what we can do in a decade or 20 years. So keep that in mind. All right, once you've got a number by each one of your goals, make sure they're measurable as well. It's not going to be, I'm going to lose some weight. It's going to be, I'm going to lose 10 pounds by this date and feel freaking great about it. That's measurable, okay? So once you got a number by each goal, then you're going to pick your number one goal, okay? The juiciest goal. You got this goal, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing, that goal. Pick that goal. Put it on another piece of paper. If there are 2 or 3 equally exciting, just pick one, because it won't matter for what we're going to do next. Then I want you to pick your top 3 one-year goals, okay? So you're going to pick your number one amazing, mind-blowing goal and your top 3 one-year goals. Put those on a separate sheet of paper. And most people don't even get this far. You're already ahead of 99.9% of the people on the planet just by doing this. But you're going to take a couple more steps here real quick. The goal will drive you. It'll pull you. It'll push you. It'll propel you. But it's the why that's the real fuel. It's the why I wanted my goals that got me out from underneath the rock when I lost everything. It's the why that got me there to be able to lose $50 million in the first place. It's the why. So I want you to write a paragraph under each goal why it's an absolute freaking must for you to achieve that goal, not a should. We say, I should do this, I should do that. We end up shoulding all over ourselves, okay? It's an absolute freaking must. And so write that down and use emotionally charged words like amazing, incredible, magnificent. Words are very, very powerful. Use them, okay, to push you and to drive you and to motivate you. So you might say, so my family and I can be free, so we can go do whatever we want. We can do it whenever we want. We can bring whoever we want, and we end up wherever we want. Whatever it is for you, write it down and trust in the power of the why. So once you've written the positive reasons why it's an absolute must, I want you to put some pain in there. Because as human beings, we will do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. So I want you to put some pain if you don't achieve the goals, okay? So write down, so I don't feel like a failure. So I don't live a life of regret. So I don't fail my wife, or I don't fail my husband, or fail my children. Okay, use that pain, because again, this is fuel, guys. This is the fuel that got me going. It's the fuel that you need to push past your limiting beliefs, to take life to the next level, to get uncomfortable. Okay, so many of us are comfortable, and because we're comfortable, we don't push it. And I'm telling you, comfort zone's a warm place, but nothing freaking grows there, okay? So get uncomfortable, and this is the fuel that does that. So the positive and negative reasons why. Okay, the last thing, and I wish I'd have brought my planner. It's out in the car now that I think about it. I could give you an example of this, but you must go find pictures of the things that you want, okay? People have vision boards, for example. I've got vision boards. I've got multiple vision boards. Just search pictures, and it doesn't have to be exactly what your goal is, but if you look at it and you're like, oh man, that looks good, or it resonates with you, download it, go to CVS or Walgreens, have it blown up, and put it where you're going to see it. I want to give you, and if you'll humor me for another minute, I want to talk about visualization,
I'm
okay?
ready.
Because
Preach.
This stuff worked for me. It got me to the point of being able to lose that, and then got me back again. And this stuff works,
it's
guys.
Powerful.
So it really works. So trust me on this. But get the pictures now. I want to give you some examples of using this to visualize and manifest these things in your life. And I'll give you some famous examples to start, because we're here in Hollywood, so this is a great one. Jim Carrey, when he was flat freaking broke, wrote himself a check for, I think it was $10 million. It might have been 10 or it might have been 15. I can't remember. But it was at least $10 million. I know that for a fact. And he put on it for services rented, wrote it to himself. He used to go up to the Hollywood sign here, and he'd sit there and look at it when he was flat broke and manifested getting it. And that's how much money he made for the Dumb and Dumber movie. Okay, so that's a great example of visualization. Another one, I'll give you an awesome example. There was this millionaire in New Orleans that decided to help this school in a class in a school. So this was a school. It was a junior high school, or might have been a high school. It was a high school. Forgive me. It was a high school, and only about 17% of the kids in the school graduated from high school. Okay, so all he did. This is crazy when I read about this. All he did was he took that class, one of the classes there at that school, and took them to a college. I think it was Loyola in New Orleans. And they paired them up with a student. Every student got paired up with a college student. So they followed them around for one day. They went to classes. They went to the library. They went to the cafeteria. They got to see campus life. They walked around the grounds. They got to see the social aspect for one day. Then they bust them back. Then for the next 2 or 3 years, all they did was once a day in school for a couple of minutes, they would close their eyes and visualize themselves going to college. And give me a little poetic license on this. It might have been 5 or 10 minutes. I don't know exactly. And give me a little poetic license on these stats as well. It could have been 18 or 19% that graduated, but that went to college. But I'm here to tell you that over 80% of the kids in that class went to college because they visualized it. Olympic athletes visualize a race now. It used to be just the Russians that started this. Now every Olympic athlete visualizes a race before they do it because it's proven to make them perform better. So visualization. Let me give you my own examples. When I was 18, I was a broker, and I thought a broker had to have a 4-door car. Okay, so I bought this 4-door Ford Granada. It was the ugliest freaking car you've ever seen in your life. Okay, if you work for Ford, I'm sorry, but you know it was ugly. I worked for a broker, with a broker rather, that had 2 Corvettes, and he had so much money, it just blew me away. And he's the guy that taught me about mindset, the one I was telling you about. Now, by the way, since then, I followed Tony Robbins around the planet for 20 years and been immersed in his environment. He let me drive that Corvette, and that experiential piece is really important. If there's something that you want, go experience it as close to it as you can. If you want a car, go test drive it. Just suck it up and pretend you have the money and go test drive it. If you want a particular kind of house, go to an open house of that caliber of house and walk around and visualize yourself living there. But I wanted a Corvette, so I went into a magazine, because this is before you could even spell internet. Okay, this is 1979. I got a picture out of a magazine of a Corvette, and I taped it on the visor of my 4-door Granada. So every time I got in, it was right there. Within a year or two, I had this beautiful red Corvette. Now I'm going to give you a couple other examples. Please know this is not me bragging, okay, because these things really don't even interest me anymore. This was back when the TV show Magnum P.I. was out, which they shot here in Hawaii as well. And the actor was Tom Selleck. He drove this beautiful red Ferrari 308. I mean, and I thought that was the coolest freaking thing I'd ever seen. Yeah. So I got a picture of that actual car out of a magazine and put it on the visor of that Corvette. Within a year or two, I had a Maserati look just like it. Pictures work, friends. So be sure that you get them and put them around you. And if I had my planner, I could show you, because in the back of that thing, I've got pictures that have been in there 20 years. Now, the first pictures are my gratitude pictures. And I recommend that you have pictures of things that you're grateful for as well, because that's foundational to everything. Anything you want, you have to start from a place of gratitude. But then you get the pictures that you want. And what's crazy in this planner, I've got pictures of the houses that I want, and they look just like what I have. The Lamborghini before I ever got it, the Rolls Royce, all this stuff that I got because I had pictures. So I know some of you analytical ones are scratching your head right now thinking you might not be buying this, and that would be a mistake. Trust me on this. Anyway, so that's my goal setting and visualization recap. Yeah.
I feel like I'm ready to tear my shirt off and get to work. No, honestly, that's probably some of the best, most tactical goal setting advice I've ever heard.
It's not just the stuff though. And you know what? I screwed up. I forgot one thing. When you're doing this goal setting piece, make sure you take a minute and I just added this, and it's really important when I do my workshop. Write down who you have to become to achieve these goals, the traits that you have to own and become. They're already in you, but you got to own them. Fearless, And write down I am a, and anything you put the words I am in front of is an identity statement. And there's no greater force in the human psyche than the need to remain consistent with how we identify ourselves. So I start it like this: I, Rod Khleif, am a. And then you do an identity statement of who you have to embody: driven, focused, determined, leader, entrepreneurial, grateful. Make sure you put grateful in there. And list the qualities that you have to own that are already inside of you to elevate your game to achieve those incredible goals. Because what got you here is not going to get you there. So you got to own those qualities. And make sure you include that, because the more you associate with who you have to become to do that, the more you own it and associate and think about it, the more likely you are going to achieve everything you want. And truly nothing is insurmountable. You can achieve anything you want in this world. So you just triggered me that I forgot to mention that.
I just love the clarity around everything you're saying.
Clarity is power.
Right.
Clarity is power. The more, and that's why I don't care if you just did your goals yesterday, do it again. Because the more times you do it, the clearer it is, the more likely it is you're going to get it.
Right.
Because what your goals do is they trigger something in your brain called your reticular activating system. And it's that filter that filters out what you think is what it thinks is important to you subconsciously. It's subconscious. And the best example I can give is when you first buy a car. You never really notice them there before then, but then you see them everywhere. Were they there before? Of course they were. But your brain now knows that that's important to you. Same thing with your goals. And I've had Grant Cardone on my show a couple of times, and he tells you to write your goals every morning and every evening, which might be a little overkill, but listen, it worked for him. He's got his own jet. I don't have a jet. So, it worked for him. But that's the power of this, guys, is to continue to associate and get clarity. Like you said, Oliver, because clarity really is power. I was just telling some people, I spoke at an event last night, I was just telling some people that before I met my wife, I, with exhaustive detail, wrote down everything I was looking for in a woman. I mean, pages of it. And I spent a lot of time on it. And the minute I met her, I knew it was her, because I'd already seen her in my mind. In fact, I'll give you another great example. When Disney World near me in Orlando built Epcot Center, Walt Disney had already died. That was like the last park they built. And Roy Disney was at the grand opening of Epcot Center. And Walt was, of course, he was gone. But a reporter went up to Roy and said, it's a shame Walt didn't get to see this. And Roy looked at him and said, the only reason you're seeing this is because Walt saw this. So
years ago.
Yeah, of course he did. Yeah. And that's the reason it happened. And so clarity is absolutely power. Yeah.
I love your passion behind this, because it's
my favorite topic,
such a powerful message.
Yeah.
And then when you can deliver it like that, I think it motivates people to take action.
It works.
Yeah.
Buddy, I was riding high. I had the cars, the $8 million house, and lost it all. Okay. Yeah. And then now I'm back. Yeah. I had that house. In fact, let me give you another, since we're on goals, before we push past this, I want to share something else. This is really important about goals. So never achieve a large goal without having other goals lined up behind it, because I want to give you a story. About 2 months after I built this house on the beach, okay? Now this house, just to give you an idea, okay, was 3 stories, big spiral staircase up through the middle. On the second floor, I had these special aquariums built, 20 feet long, 8 feet high. The aquariums alone cost me $200,000, okay? To give you an idea of the caliber of this house. Elevator, wine cellar, I go on and on. But I'm in the pool, floating at night, 2 months after I built it, and this is really important for you guys. I'm floating in the pool. It's changing colors. It's got fiber optic lighting. It's a giant waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool. Another waterfall from the spa into the pool. The pool was in magazines. It's spectacular. And just so you can visualize this, I owned the beach on one side, and I had my boat houses on the back side. It was a long, narrow island, and I had to slice through the whole thing. It's called Gulf to Bay. Wow. And so I'm floating in the pool at night, 2 months after I built it. My family's inside sleeping, and I get depressed. And I don't mean just feeling a little off. I got depressed. And that's what I want to share with you guys, because I didn't have a vision for the future. I had achieved this incredible goal I worked for my whole life, and it was like, now what? Okay? So that was number one thing that was going on. So when you do your goals and you get close to achieving a big one, make sure you have other goals lined up, because it's never about the goals. The goals will push you. Happiness comes from progress and growth. Like I was talking, I've spent 20 years with Tony following him around the planet. I went to one of his events back in December that I've been to 16 times. I could teach the damn thing. I could do a really good job teaching it. But it's because I'm growing and I'm always progressing, and happiness comes from that growth. So make sure you've got another goal lined up. But the second thing I want to share with your listeners, Oliver, is, and this is really important, because I know if you're watching this, you want financial success, whatever your definition of that is. And that's what I wanted. So the other thing that was happening, the other reason I was depressed, was I was totally focused on me. It was all rod, rod, rod. I built this giant testament to my ego to show the world I was good enough, okay? And that's truly what it was. It was to prove the world I was good enough. And so I was totally focused on Rod. And so I was successful, but I was unfulfilled. And I didn't discover this until I went and saw Tony, because I went and bought some books and I'm going to shake this off. I got Dale Carnegie, Tom Hopkins, I got, Zig Ziglar, and I got a Tony book. And I started reading the Tony book. I'm like, and by the way, if you guys ever have a chance to see him, just go do it. Trust me, I get nothing for telling you that. Just do it. Trust me. You agree? Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so I went to one of his events 20 years ago, and I found out he fed families for the holidays. And I'm like, man, that's really cool. And it's not me thinking about Rod, that's doing something for other people. And he pulls that out of you. That's just one of his gifts, many gifts. So I went back and I decided to feed 5 families for the holidays. It was for Thanksgiving then. We do it for Christmas now. But we got frozen turkeys. We got big boxes of food. We went to a church, found out who really needs help. I mean, who really needs help? They gave us 5 names and addresses. And we got toys for the kids if they had kids. And the third family changed my life. So I go up to this door. It was a woman, and it was one of these shotgun houses. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these. If you've looked at really old, crappy houses, this was where you walk into the living room, you walk through the bedroom to get to the kitchen, which has the bathroom off it. So it's a 1-bedroom, but you got to walk through the bedroom to get to the kitchen. I mean, it's just horrible layout. And there were 5 kids in there with her mom. Mom comes out, she starts crying. The kids come out, several of them start crying. I start crying, and I'm freaking hooked. Okay, and I realized there was more to life than Rod at that point. And so I'm blessed to say that in the last, 19 years, we've fed 65,000 children for the holidays.
Wow.
And we've done probably close to 20,000 backpacks filled with school supplies for area kids. It's just a travesty to me that kids in the United States don't have the basic school supplies. And then we've done thousands of teddy bears to the local police departments for their officers to keep in their cars, when they encounter a child. Now, I'm not telling you this to brag, but I'm telling you this because if you want financial success without that piece in some fashion, it doesn't have to be big like that, but without that in some fashion is not success, my friends. Yeah. So you've got to add that component to it, okay? And I don't care if you just help an elderly person or of one family or children or whatever it is, do something to give back. And because I tell you, I've interviewed a billionaire on my show, mega millionaires, and I can tell if they are like I was back then, because I recognize it, because it was me, okay, where they're just totally focused on themselves. And, they're there for one reason, because they have an agenda, and that's not fulfilled, my friends. They're not truly successful, in my opinion. So I just want to share that last piece with your listeners.
And I love how you built that into the goal-setting process now with the who do you want to help.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah. That's it. It's so important because that's a critical piece of it, man. I mean, it really is. It's what life's about. You learn that in the Tony environment, which is, every human's got 6 human needs, and one of them is the need to contribute. So if you're in a relationship, you need to, of course, contribute to your spouse, but you also need to allow them to contribute to you, because it's a basic human need. And you need to give beyond yourself, and that's when you truly feel fulfilled. If someone's depressed, they're focused on themselves. Yeah. If they're suicidal, they're focused on themselves. And if you can get them to focus outwardly and project outwardly, then the depression goes away.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very powerful stuff on mindset.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend.
So I want to, because I think that's, I'm guessing, what helped you rebuild, but I want to go back to Florida, market crashes, construction people leave, you're losing all this properties.
Lost it all.
What was the mental shift at that point in time, and then how did you start rebuilding?
Good. Well, of course, I was underneath a rock for a few months. I mean, all you could see was my eyeball poking out the side of the rock. Because I was licking my wounds. I mean, I truly thought I was set. It was the worst thing in the world for me to go through at the time, and period. But then luckily, again, I was in that Tony environment. I kept being around people that were thriving. I actually was in his big mastermind at that time. I keep referencing him because he's been such a big impact in my life. But I was in his platinum partnership, which, you know, it's like 120 grand all in to join at that time. It's more now. So I was around people that were thriving through that crash. And that's one piece, is you want to be around people that aren't caught up in the fear, because if you're in fear, you're paralyzed. You can't do anything, okay? So I got around people that were thriving, and I remembered what I wanted and why I wanted it. And so, you know, what you focus on grows. Where focus goes, energy flows. So you want to be sure you're focusing on what you want, not what you don't want, okay? Very important. So let me give you some examples. Like, let's say you want to get out of debt. Get that out of your mindset. Focus on income. You know, they asked Mother Teresa if she was anti-war. She said, no, I'm pro-peace. You understand the difference? Okay, so again, where you focus is where your energy goes. So I realized that I needed to focus on what I wanted. Instead of feeling sorry for myself, so I kind of made lemonade out of lemons, and I built this company. Yeah, it was a switch, and it was you know, there were times I wanted to wallow in it, and people create stories as well. And my story was, yeah, I lost $50 million, but I was using it to hold myself back, and for significance, believe it or not. I was, you know, I'm embarrassed to admit that, but it was the truth. And when I got past the story, because we use stories as softeners so that we don't get disgusted with ourselves. They're like a breaker switch. And so I had to change my story and eliminate the disempowering stories and focus on, again, exactly what I wanted and why I wanted it. You know, now I live in a compound. I lost that house on the beach, but I live in this compound. It's on the bay. It's, you know, there's like 6 buildings. I've got this giant main house. I've got a beautiful guest house on the water. Welcome to come anytime, brother.
I'd love to be there.
I have a theater room. I've got, with a conference center above it, I've got a giant exercise room, and the place is magnificent. It's like a park. It's like a Zen park. And because God's got a sense of humor, I can see my old house across the bay because it's right out my backyard. But life is fantastic. I've got an amazing, beautiful wife. I'm focused on her. I'm focused on my coaching students, my foundation, you know, that I was just telling you about. And because I paid for everything up through 2008. I mean, that year I did 1,600 families, and I paid for it. But then when the market crashed, and I formed a foundation, nonprofit, and take donations and stuff now. Yeah. But that's where my focus is. And so, you know, it's so easy to get caught up in success and lose sight of what matters. And that was the other thing. You know, it's easy to, you know, my biggest regret in life, and let me chat about that for a second. My biggest regret in life was I'd come home to this mansion on the beach and I'd play with my kids, but I was distracted. I wasn't there mentally. And I don't want that for you. You know, I know you've got some young blood dripping from their teeth guys watching this, women watching this, that want that freaking success, that are already there or on the way to making it happen. But I don't want you to lose focus if you're in an important relationship, which we're all in an important relationship. If you've got a significant other, especially if you've got children. So, you know, they want your presence. And I don't care if it's only for 15 minutes. They want your total focus and presence. They'd rather have 15 minutes of your time than an hour of you on the phone screwing around, okay? So keep that in mind.
True.
And so I also take my students in my live events through this planning workshop, and I can literally do it in a minute. So let me do that real quick if you'll humor me.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. It's so easy to get caught up in distraction. It's so easy to be so focused on what you want that you lose sight of what's most important. And like I said, that was my greatest regret in life. My kids will tell you I was a great dad, but I didn't live up to my own expectations. And so I recommend a weekly planning process, and it's real quick. I can go through it quick. It's 5 steps. And the first 2 you may not think are important. I'm here to tell you they're critical. The first thing, like I told you previously, the goals will push you, but they won't make you happy. I told you 2 months after I achieved a 20-year goal, I was depressed, okay? So the goals won't keep you happy. It's the progress and growth that keeps you happy. So the first thing you do every week is you celebrate what you got done, okay? You just take a minute and say, Rod, good job, you freaking rock, you got that done. It takes a split second, but the key is you do it consciously. Consciously pat yourself on the back so that when you have an inevitable setback or when things don't happen as fast as you like, you're still happy because you're growing, okay? So that's step 1. Step 2, journal, okay? Especially if you have kids. Capture magic moments with the people that matter. Take 5 minutes and write down anything magical that happened that week. It takes 5 minutes.
I love that.
I promise you will thank me if you do, okay? In 20 years, if you've got young kids, you will thank me because it's such a gift to you to be able to relive those moments because we forget so much. And so not only do you not forget, but it also causes you to create more of them in the people that you care about's lives. You're going to create more magic moments because you're thinking about it. Once a week, 5 minutes, give yourself and your family that gift. So that's number 2. Now, the third thing is the big thing. And you're going to do this once. It'll evolve over time. But you're going to write down everything that's most important to you in life, okay? So you start with the people. Make a list of all the people that are most important. And it shouldn't be more than about 20 or 30 people. I'm talking people that matter, not associates, okay? And that's max. Then you're going to write down all the important pieces of whatever your core work is. If you're an agent, things you have to stay on top of, getting the leads in the top of the funnel, working the deals you've already got. So, make a list of high impact areas for you that you have to focus on. And this is how I managed multiple companies. I stayed focused on what was most important, because you don't know this, Oliver, but I built 24 businesses, okay, and several have been worth a lot of money, and many have been spectacular flaming seminars. But I learned from them. But how I managed them was through this process. So if you own a business besides the real estate, then again, capture the top impact areas that you have to focus on: sales, marketing, operations, maybe website, leads, whatever it is for you. Make a list of those. Should not be more than about 12 things. This is high level, okay? What I tell my students, if they're interested in multifamily, is make a list of the things you're going to focus on in the multifamily space. Picking a target market, developing your team, evaluating deals. Again, maybe another 8 to 10 high level things. Now, I do this on a Word document. I've done it for 20 years. If you're more of a handwriter, handwrite it, but get it all on one sheet of paper. That's the key thing. Now, if it's a Word document, print it on one sheet of paper. Now, the last thing you're going to do after you get these impact areas from your businesses and your people that are important is you're going to list some declarations. Some things that you're committed to. Maybe you've got some lifestyle choices you want to make. Maybe you've got weight, you want to lose some weight, you want to tone up. I'm going to lift a body part every day. I ask myself the question, what can I do to rock Tiffany's world this week? Tiffany's my wife. And so I'm focused on doing something to make her happy. So whatever it is for you, put some declarations down. Now, once this is done and you print it or you have it handwritten, it is a very, very powerful piece of paper, because when you look at it, it accomplishes several things. Number one is you have clarity. You have incredible clarity. And again, clarity is power, right. Okay? Secondly, it eliminates overwhelm, okay? And, it's so easy to get overwhelmed with all the plates that are spinning that we're kind of trying to keep spinning. But when you can see it all on one sheet of paper, the overwhelm goes away. But thirdly, you don't lose sight of anything that's important. You maintain balance, okay? And so you look at this list once a week, and if there are people you need to touch or reach out to, or maybe your kids are not getting the attention they deserve, then you make note of that. Or if there's an area of your business that you need to, nothing gets lost, okay? You get that. But what you're going to do, then the fourth step is you're going to create a list of your must-do tasks for that week. Okay, this is not a place for projects. This is a place for the things you're committed to doing that week. If you've got a project, like you've got a closing or something, just list the things you're doing towards that closing or that project that week. Okay, so it's not a place for goals. This is just what you're committed to doing that week. I call it my weekly must list. Then the last piece, and then I'm done with this, is there are always a few things on that list that will get you further faster. It's called the Pareto principle. There's usually about 20% of the things on the list that will get you 80% further. Sometimes they're the things you've been avoiding. Identify those things and block time for them, okay? So and maybe it's your family. And so don't be afraid to block time for your kids or your spouse. Say, baby, from 6 to 8, I'm yours. From 8 to 10, dad or mom or whatever is bringing home the bacon, okay, making the money. And they will appreciate that, okay? So don't be afraid, but block time. And when you do that, you're much more focused on what's in that block of time. You're less likely to be distracted. You are going to execute much more efficiently. And I can tell you, it's really served me to stay focused on what's most important. Now, one last tip. I recommend you do this the same day and the same time of day, ideally as much as you can, because like I do it Sunday afternoons, but whatever it is for you, pick a day and time and try to stick with that, because you want it to become a habit for success. And so if you do it for 60 to 90 days, you will do it the rest of your life. Anyway, that's my weekly planning process.
What an awesome roadmap.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost makes it on automatic on things you want to focus on, the things you want to do,
and you're celebrating your progress.
Right.
So if you have a setback, you don't get beat up, and you're capturing your life with every piece is important. So
and it you know, the tips you gave about calendaring and family time and all that, it sets expectations for everyone so they know, hey, when Dad's here now, he's all in.
Yeah. And the phone's in the door,
but
you know?
At 8:30 or whatever,
Right.
then Dad's going to the office and bringing home
health
the bacon.
goals, you know, all of those things that you just keep your life in focus.
Yeah.
And focus is power. Clarity is power. So
I love it. You had the mental shift. You got clear on what was important. Then what was the first thing you started doing? Was it straight into multifamily at that point?
Yes.
Or?
Well, actually, you know, this hasn't been that long. You know, I decided I was going to start doing real estate again and doing multifamily again. Well, no. Back then, it was I was out of real estate for, probably 8 years, okay? Because my credit got destroyed.
Right.
Okay, I mean, I used to have a black card and put about $100,000 on it and buy stupid shit like watches and you know, and then it was really humiliating. They dropped my limit on my black card to $2,500. That was painful. Anyway, I could put houses on it, and then but anyway, so I had to get my credit back, you know, and so I built this litigation support company, and it was a $10 million company, and we helped people that were in foreclosure and helped thousands.
So this
of
is in the
families.
downturn then.
This was in the downturn, yeah.
Okay.
So that was how I made lemonade out of lemons. And tried some other things as well, but I just, you know, I knew that I'd come back out of it. The real estate, getting back into the multifamily, was just in the last 3 years, really 2.5 years. And I started the podcast because I wanted to get the message out there, and I hate asking for money, and I knew that I'd need money, equity for deals. And so I thought, you know, why not add value, you know, do what I can to add value, and then it's just been insane. You know, it's funny. You want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans. I never planned to do, I wrote a book. I do courses in coaching. I had 600 people in Denver at my last live event. My next one's in Baltimore, and then I'm going to be here in LA in January, Baltimore, September. And I mean, I never planned any of this stuff. I was the introvert, okay? I'm the guy that wouldn't raise his hand in class, and I'm in front of 600 people for 3 days, and it's all me, just talking for 3 days. It's crazy. It's just funny how the universe works and things happen, you know, it's crazy.
So you're rebuilding your life through loss mitigation type stuff?
Yep, back then I was doing that exactly.
And then tell me about what got you into apartments then.
Well, back then when it was all crashing and burning, my apartments, if I hadn't cross-collateralized them, I'd still have them, you know, and I was comfortable. Because I could have done a lot more multifamily back then too, and I was comfortable. I was lazy. I mean, there's always another level. Okay, I know guys with thousands of doors that are comfortable that need to kick it in gear and go to the next door, the next level. Because there's always another level. And so I got comfortable and didn't pursue more multifamily because houses were so easy. But you know, I had some apartment complexes, and the message was they were doing okay. So, you know, I'm not getting back into houses again. That's how I crashed and burned. Now, let me just say this. Those of you, if you've got a handful of houses, or you buy your houses in a tight geographic area, you're going to be fine. But why? Because you can, you know, you buy 8 houses, it's 8 closings. You buy a 10-plex, it's 1 deal, and frankly, the numbers aren't that much different in many cases. You're going to scale much faster. They're easier to buy. It's a team sport. If your credit's not all there, your income's not all there, your net worth's not all there, you bring in people to supplement that. And so you'll maybe only end up with 50% of the deal. I don't know about you, but I'd take 50% of something over 100% of nothing any day.
Yep.
Okay? So, you know, that's why I love multifamily, and I got back into it. And I just got passionate about it. And, you know, like I said, my podcast's going to hit 6 million downloads this week. It's just insane.
That's great. And where can people find that?
Oh, yeah. The podcast is Lifetime Cash Flow. If you put in real estate on iTunes, I'm usually number 2 after Bigger Pockets. But it's about apartment buying, okay? And I do an interview segment just like you do. I don't do it nearly as classy as you do. You see me on Zoom, but I interview experts like you do. And then I also do a weekly segment on mindset, okay? It's called Own Your Power. And I think this week was on boldness, on being bold. And people just really resonate with that, with the psychology of success. And I've also got a Facebook group. So if you're interested in multifamily at all, there's almost 28,000 people in there. It's the largest Facebook group for multifamily on the planet. And just go to multifamilycommunity.com, and it's a direct link to that group.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm a part of that group too. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Content's
It's
great.
just educational. We don't
networking's
allow any
great.
promotion. It's great to network.
Yep.
And so, yeah.
So then, because a lot of people that we talk to are interested in kind of getting into multifamily because of all the advantages that you just kind of listed out. What does the apartment buying process look like from like 30,000 feet up? Because I think a lot of people, they're just intimidated, right? They can wrap their head around buying a house, but a 10-plex just seems like...
Right. No, it's a little intimidating. And, you know, we have a stress muscle. We have a courage muscle, you know, and we got to build that thing. And sometimes you need to start with a duplex. So there's two kinds of multifamily. For those of you that don't know, many of you watching probably already do, but there's residential and there's commercial. Residential is duplex, triplex, fourplex, or if you're in the Northeast, it's 2-family, 3-family, 4-family. And there's some advantages to residential because it's 30-year fixed financing, fantastic interest rates, no balloon payments, less money down, if you're going to live in it especially. And so it's just some real opportunities there. And then there's commercial. Now, commercial is 5 units or larger. And the disadvantage to residential is the value is based on comparable sales. So, you know, if you don't have comps, you can't get the value up where you want to. But what's great about commercial multifamily, meaning 5+ units, is the value is based on a multiple of the net income. So it's, you know, you divide it by the cap rate, and that's how you determine the value. And what's incredible about that is if you find a property that you can raise the net income on, by either raising the rents or decreasing the expenses, you exponentially increase the value. Let me give you an example. One of the deals that we just closed on a month ago is in Shreveport, Louisiana. It's a 403-unit property. And the guy just let it go into the ground. I mean, I've never seen such horrible management. I'm head-scratching stupid. But he's at 70% occupied, okay? So 30% vacant. And all we have to do, and we're already well on the way, is get our occupancy up to 90%, and we've increased the value $7 or $8 million like that, overnight. That's without even increasing the rents. That's just getting the occupancy up. So that's the impact of the improvement to the NOI. And so, you know, at a high level, let me give you kind of a high level synopsis of the business, okay? First of all, remember, it's a team sport, okay? And what I mean by that is, if you've done single-family investing, you're not going to do. You can do it by yourself. Multifamily, you're not going to do that. It's an absolute team sport. And what I mean by that is, you're going to develop relationships with brokers, with property managers, with bankers, with potential partners, even with investors. And what's great about commercial multifamily is when you're borrowing money, the bank is going to look at 3 things. They're going to look at your experience, they're going to look at your net worth, and they're going to look at your post-closing liquidity. And I'll explain each one of those in a little more detail in a second. But what's incredible is you can find one person to satisfy all those requirements and go do a deal. Yep. Okay, so it doesn't have to be you. And that's what's so amazing about this business. You use the we word, okay? You find somebody that's got some properties and you say, we own 500 doors or we own 1,000 doors, and you just build relationships. This is a relationship business. And I will say this about the multifamily business, especially if you're an agent. You know, if you're an agent, every January 1st, you got to go back to work. And I'm not saying anything wrong with it, because I did it and made a lot of money doing it. But if something happens to you, you could have a problem. You get hit by a truck or you get ill or something. So I'm going to encourage you to buy, I don't care if it's real estate. I mean, that's your wheelhouse. It should be real estate. But buy things that cash flow so that ultimately you've got other income coming in. Okay? And so that's why I'm really glad Oliver had me on the show, because that's the message there, is push through the fear and start using some of those commissions to take down some property that's developing cash flow. And I suggest multifamily just because, you know, it's been so good to me, versus single family. But there, you know, you can do it in other commercial asset classes as well: self-storage, warehouse, mobile home parks, industrial, office, whatever. Certainly you can do it in any of those. But I'm going to speak to multifamily. But the beautiful thing is, you put a team together, and the bank will want a net worth equal to the loan amount. But again, you just give somebody a piece of the deal to lend their resume, okay? The bank will want 10% of the loan amount in post-closing liquidity. You borrow $1 million, you're going to need 100 grand in the bank after the closing as liquidity. But again, you bring somebody in that's got that in the bank, as an example. And then what's great is they have what's called non-recourse debt, and that's agency financing. It's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And what that means is, if you don't know what that means,
Which is beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
You better believe it's beautiful. So there's recourse debt. Recourse debt is if they foreclose and they sell the property and it doesn't sell for what you owe on it, they can come back after you personally. Ask me how I know. That's my catchphrase. Somebody even gave me a T-shirt that says, ask me how I know, because I've made every freaking mistake you can possibly make, but that's one of them, recourse debt. But there's non-recourse debt, where they foreclose, all they get is the property. It's a beautiful thing. And so it's not hard to, if you're out there doing this business, which I know many of you are, it's not hard to align with people that have resources, that have done some of these deals. And even if you just find a high net worth individual, let's say you've got the net worth and liquidity pieces, you need the experience. With Freddie Mac, you can go get a third-party property management company that they vet and they approve. And you can satisfy that requirement with a company, with an outsourced third-party property manager. So you go find a doctor that's got a lot of bucks, you can go take down an apartment building. But you got to go raise the equity, obviously. Now, in commercial multifamily, equity means the down payment, the amount you need for capital expenditures, and the amount you need for closing costs. It's just all the money you're paying out of pocket to purchase the property. Okay, that's equity in the commercial world. That's the nomenclature. So what do you do in commercial multifamily? You brand yourself, number one. You set up a company. You go on the Secretary of State's website. You see what names are available. Ours is REM Capital Partners. But whatever, you pick a name and you put capital at the end, or equity, or properties, or real estate, or whatever it is, and you become an entity. You form an LLC, and that's why you check in with the Secretary of State to see if it's available. Go on GoDaddy, see if a domain that works for it is available. And then go on Fiverr and have a or Upwork and have a website put together. All this you can do for $500, and then you're hung your shingle and you're in commercial real estate. So that's the first thing, to brand yourself. The other thing is you got to get some reach. And like you're doing and I'm doing with my podcast, we're adding value and we're getting reach.
Right.
I mean, if I mention that I've got a deal that we're raising money for on my podcast, our dance card gets full like that.
Yeah, the phone starts ringing.
Exactly. So, but you guys are so blessed that you live in this day and age because of, social media and technology that, you've got Facebook. Like I've got that Facebook group. There's 28,000 people in it. You can do LinkedIn. You can do Instagram. You can do YouTube. I've got students in every one of those platforms that are getting reach. And so it's so easy to do. Yes, but the key is to add value. And so if you're going to do that, you add value. You curate articles, you write articles, you do videos, and you just add value to people. And then you start getting a following. And then when you say, hey, I've got a deal I need some money for, boom. Now, there's some caveats to that, and you need to understand syndication. I don't know how deep you want to go here, but you need to understand syndication, and if you're going to syndicate versus joint venture. Let me tell you at a high level the difference real quick. So in a joint venture, if everybody if Oliver and I buy a property, and I say, Oliver, and this is how, by the way, I bought about $20 million worth of property doing what I'm going to describe right now. Oliver, you put up the money. We'll split the deal 50-50. I'll do all the work. I'll sell it. I'll manage it. I'll do everything, and we'll split it. Everybody's happy, right? Now, Oliver, if I spend more than $3,000, I need your written permission. That's a JV, because he has some even just a slight decision-making piece of it. Everybody in a JV, joint venture, has to have some role, okay? And that's enough. So that's how I did it back then. This is when I was wet behind the ears. This is about 40 years ago. Literally. And so I turned 60.
Can that be multiple people, or is that generally one
sure. As long as
partner?
every person has some active role in some fashion.
Okay.
They wear a hat. Okay. It can be very minor. But if you take money from somebody and you just give them a rate of return and they're not active, you have to syndicate. And what that means is you have to, really, you just stroke a check to an SEC attorney and you dot the I's and you cross the T's. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. I don't think I want to dig deep on it with you here, just because we could talk about more fun things than that. But just talk to a syndication attorney. There are several ways to do these deals. I'll just tell real briefly. And one of them you can't advertise, okay? And that's the 506B. But now they have what's called, and that's how I grew up. You had to have, there was a 3-touch rule. You had to talk to somebody 3 times before you could bring up a deal. But now there's the 506C where you can advertise. I can scream it from the rooftop, say it on our podcast, because we only take accredited investors. Okay. And accredited means somebody that makes $200,000 a year or has $1 million net worth without their personal residence. And if you just limit it to those, you can take accredited investors. You can advertise. So that's the 506B. And now they have what's called a Reg A, where you can take both, but you have to get audited, and it's more expensive to do that. That's what Grant Cardone's doing, a fund like that. He's taking anybody. You know, that's syndication. You just have to learn it. Like anything else, you have to learn it, and that's it. Come see me. Come see me. I'm being in Baltimore in September. I don't know when this is going live, but I'll be in Baltimore in September.
Yeah, just to give Rod a plug, I mean, your events are top notch.
Thank you.
I attended one myself, the multifamily boot camp, learned a lot.
Thank you.
Really, you go deep on everything.
Yeah.
You give all the details. You give all the how-to-dos and all that stuff. So if someone wanted to find out more about that,
Sure. And let me say this. It's just me for 3 days. I don't bring in outside speakers to sell you stuff like a lot of these guys do.
It's not a pitch fest.
It's not a pitch fest, okay? The Baltimore one is rodinbaltimore.com. I've got one in Los Angeles, and that's in September 27th through the 29th. I've got one in Los Angeles here in January 17th, 18th, 19th, and I think that's Rod in Los Angeles. But if you go to multifamilybootcamp.com, that's our general site. But let me say this, you should also go to my website, because if you're interested in this business at all, I used to give away a book. I had a 200-page book. I finally put it on Amazon. I gave away 20,000 copies, okay? And it's like a textbook. It's no fluff in it. It's not one of these fluff pieces. I gave it, finally my team's like, you ever going to make $1 on this thing? I'm like, fine, I'll put it on Amazon. It's on there for 25 bucks. And it's worth every penny. But because I took that down, I now have a due diligence checklist on there, which is the best in the business, okay? And it's free. It's on my website, rodkhleif.com, RODKHLEIF.com. And there's other books on there that are free, the biggest mistakes I see people make, things like that. There's tons of articles, tons of videos. It's all free. So go there if you have any interest in the multifamily space at all, or come see me. I'd love to see you. And if you go in that multifamily Facebook group that I have, you go to multifamilycommunity.com, and it's a direct link to that Facebook group, and just put in boot camp and see what hundreds of people have said about the event, unsolicited. You don't have to take my word for it. And tickets are like $297 for 3 days. It's a no-freaking-brainer.
It's well worth every penny.
Thank you.
There's no question. And I would even recommend upgrading to the VIP, because then you get to network with all the other people that are making moves, the people that have the deals and the people that have the money, and you can work on.
And I tell you something. I had 600 people in Denver. Probably about 240 of them had been to one of my events before, because they keep coming, because it's all about team. It's about networking. It's about, aligning with other people in this business, the people that have the money or the people that have the deals, and they come together and they do deals. It's a beautiful thing. It's like this ecosystem that I never planned to create, but it's just kind of happened on its own. So
great community.
Yeah, thank you.
I see you're posting on Facebook all the time. You're doing bigger and bigger deals. Tell me about the biggest deal you've ever done.
Biggest deal. Well, it hasn't happened yet.
I like that answer.
It hasn't happened yet. I had somebody send me one that was, I think it was 400 million, and that one is taking it to a whole nother level. It's funny. I give my coaching students gifts every month, and the gift I picked this month was Grant Cardone's book, and I was just reviewing it again today. 10x.
I love that.
How you 10x your life, and so they're getting that one. Of course, they're all going to know now, but that's okay. My love language is gifts. And by the way, if you haven't read the 5 Languages of Love, get it, so you know how your spouse or significant other feels love, because you want to give it to them the way they feel it. I express love through gifts, and so
that is a great tip. That's helped me and my wife a lot too. Just learning how the hot buttons for each person.
Right. It's called the 5 Languages of Love. Highly recommend you get it. But I give lots of books and gifts because that's my love language. But anyway, the biggest one is yet to come. But
what about in terms of like number of doors? The biggest project. Tell me about that one.
Actually, it's that 400 door one. That's the biggest I've done. Again, just realize I just got started again because my credit was crap. Okay, so I'm just back in the game recently. I have made every possible mistake you can make in this business because I never went to college. I never got formal training on this. I just went out and did it. I didn't know what I didn't know. I mean, I can tell you stories where I bought properties that I thought my acquisition guy had looked at and I hadn't looked at. We go out there and it's just 4 walls. The roof, everything's gone. We thought it was a house that was 30 grand, so we didn't care. And we didn't look at it. And I mean, I could go on. And by the way, those of you that when you go to buy property, there's different classes. There's A, B, C, and D. Don't do the D. Trust me. Ask me how I know. Don't do the hood, okay? I've had people killed in my properties, behind them, in front of them, next to them. You don't want that brain damage, okay? I've had where they've cut a hole in the front door so they could pass the drugs through, okay? I've had them where I had 3 houses on a street where they put those concrete pylons at the end of the street to slow down the drug traffic, okay? Not to stop it, just to put a dent in it. I mean, you don't want that brain damage, trust me, okay? You know, what we like is we like B and C properties in A and B areas that we can add value to. Because again, any increase in that net income is an exponential increase in value.
I actually think that's, to me, the most attractive part about the multifamily game is
because you can force appreciation.
You can force appreciation, and it's like if you go and rehab a single family residence, it might go up in value a little bit.
Right.
But if you take a C-class building,
you're locked into the comps.
Exactly,
you're locked into the comps.
Where if you take an apartment complex, call it a 10-plex or whatever, and you overhaul it, not only does it look better and in theory go up in value, but then you can raise rents.
The value happens from the income. Because they're valued based on income. It's not like a replacement cost approach like you get in residential real estate. It's based on income.
So if you can fill vacancies, if you can raise rents, if you can become more
decrease
efficient,
expenses, maybe bill back the utilities. Let me mention one thing. I'll give you another great example of this because I have a friend, when you're doing your evaluation on multifamily, rents have gone up so much, it's like crazy, and they keep going up, that you need to be very clear on what you can get in your rents. You have to compare apples to apples. So I give an example. Let's say you found a 50 unit, and it's all 2-bedroom units, and it looks okay. And you're checking the rents. You want to know what you can get in rents for it. So you're going to do the obvious, like you're going to check Rentometer, RentBits, Apartments.com, Zillow, Craigslist. You're going to see what 2 bedrooms are renting for, right? Well, that's not nearly enough. You got to make sure it's apples to apples. You got to make sure they're similar in age, similar size, similar amenities. Let me tell you why this is a big deal. Let's say the one you're looking at has washer-dryer hookups, and you compare it to one that doesn't. That can be a $50 a month difference in rent. To give you an idea of the ramification of this, on that 50 unit, that is an $800,000 to $1 million difference in value. $50.
Yeah.
So that's how big a deal it is. Yeah. So it's exciting because, sometimes it's not that hard to raise the rent $50, okay? And then if you get, we've got one we're raising $500 on, this one in Ohio. Except that just got destroyed by tornadoes. But that once we're rebuilt again, we had 101 doors and it completely destroyed. 3 of the buildings I think are going to have to be scraped and
wow. How soon after you bought
everybody had to move. 6 months.
Oh.
Yeah. But we see a $500 rent bump there. So I mean, do the math on 100 doors. It's
insurance will
cover it. Yeah, we're gonna see how well that goes.
You just got to deal with the brain damage,
and it's a lot of brain damage.
Yeah.
The adjuster, we hired our own adjuster as well, which is smart to do in big claims like that. And he just called me today, actually, right before I got here. But
so that one you got to rebuild. What's the game plan for the 400 unit?
Just get it stabilized. In fact, we weren't planning on selling that. I'm sorry, we were planning on flipping that one once we stabilized it. But we found out there's a really good chance there's a $1 billion development going in. And very nearby. And so we're kind of thinking, well, maybe we will keep it. So we'll see. If it comes through, it's relying on public funding, so it may not come through. But if it does, then we may rethink our strategy. But that's not a market I would normally buy in. When you're picking an area, the 3 things you should look at, how we're doing on time, but the population, income, and jobs, all 3 need to be growing.
Okay.
And there's some websites. It's not hard to learn this stuff online.
Income, population, and jobs. And
you can go on a website called bestplaces.net or city-data.com. And it sounds intimidating. It's so easy to check this stuff. But you got to do the homework, And you don't want to be a generalist. You want to be a specialist. So you really want to, get to know that area as well as you can and know what the rent should be and things like that. Build a team there. Find the brokers that are selling the kinds of property you want to buy and develop relationships with them. And realize these are lifelong relationships. In this multifamily business, it's not a get rich quick.
Right.
But it is become super freaking wealthy over time. Okay, so build those relationships.
And it's a small world.
So
that's what makes the relationships even more critical.
That's right. They're really, what's a relationship? A friendship, like you and I. I mean, we met in a mastermind we were in, and here we are. It's just a friendship. Put on your long game hat. Realize that when you get into this multifamily business, you're going to do it the rest of your life. So make sure you love it, number one. And if you're watching this, you probably love real estate already. That's important. But build relationships for life and take care of people. I just wrote the foreword for a book for a guy named Glenn Gonzalez, and the book is From Maintenance Man to Millionaire. And he has like 5,000 doors now, and a couple thousand of those he got from relationships he built with apartment owners, and just stayed in touch with these old apartment owners. And I know he bought 1,700 units from one of them, And
Wow.
so it's a real relationship business. And he had relationships with property managers, and he bought a bunch from his property manager as well because, I'm not from, but through. Because, if a property manager is managing a property and they know the owner's going to sell, who do they want to buy it?
Right.
Somebody that's gonna use them for management.
Pass the baton.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why this is a relationship business.
So what do you think as far as like the current state of the apartment landscape?
Yeah,
Do you think
good question. I get it all the
prices are
time.
high, low,
yes.
good, bad?
You got to kiss a lot of frogs to find a deal right now, okay? But if you're going to learn this business, there is no better time, because when a contraction happens, that's when exponential opportunities happen.
Yes.
Okay, if you listen to my podcast, and you can almost set a watch to it, and if somebody's got 1,000 doors or more, they usually started in 09, 10, or 11. That's a clue, okay? So, with crisis comes
Right after the
opportunity.
bounce.
You bet. With crisis comes opportunity.
Right.
And so, when this contraction happens, which it's going to happen, it may have already started. I don't think, let's pray it's not as bad as the last one, but if it is, it'll still be incredible opportunity. But if you've developed relationships with people with money, if you've developed relationships with brokers, with bankers, with property managers, and you've got your team put together, and you're not afraid of the business, that you've already learned it, so you build your competence first, which builds your confidence, and then you have the ability to influence people. That's kind of the progression. Competence, you learn it, then you've got confidence, and then you can influence people because you're confident. When two people are in really rapport together, the person that's the most competent or certain about the subject matter will almost always influence the other person, okay? And so, so learning this business right now is the best freaking time, because when the market corrects, there will be exponential opportunities, okay? It's a good time to be in the business. And while you're you want to evaluate lots of deals. You want to get to a point like, you can sniff if a deal's a good deal, and that's what you want to get to. And you can. I interviewed Grant Cardone. I mentioned him a couple of times just because a lot of people know the name. I've had him on the show a couple of times, but he studied the business for 4 years before he bought a property.
Right.
I'm not going to say you have to take that long, but the point is, learn it.
Yeah. And on that note, do you suggest focusing on one area to really get good?
Yes.
Or is it strictly a numbers game? Or what's your thoughts on that?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
Yes, this business is empirical. It's numbers. I mean, it's common sense too. Get my due diligence checklist so you don't make a mistake.
Yep.
So you kick over every rock, you make every phone call, you ask every question. But it really is numbers. Okay, if the numbers make sense, the numbers make sense. You can't play with the numbers. Okay, but yes, you should also be a specialist in your area. Okay, because generalists get crushed. Okay, dabblers get crushed. You need to know what's going on in that marketplace. You need to know what businesses are moving in, moving out. You need to know what the market rents are. You need to know the players. You need to know the area, the feel for the area, what's happening. What are the demographics? Do they like 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms? What type of property do they like? What are the amenities that they like?
Yeah.
Do they like black appliances packages or stainless? You need
Quality of finishes.
yeah, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
You need to know what they want so that you can be competitive, and that only comes from spending some time doing it. But what's so amazing that we live in the technology we live in today. When I was doing real estate, my friend, this was before your time, listings came in a book.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
They came in a freaking book
The
that you got
MLS
every
book.
week. The MLS book every week. I mean, now it's all online. I mean, you look at your listings online. You can develop your relationships. You can go on Google Earth and drive down the freaking street. You can look at the cars in the parking lot. Go down to the main end of, you can go on Spot Crime, see what the crime's like. But you drive down to the main street and, see if there's national retail tenants, or if it's a pawn shop and a liquor store and a strip club. And if it's the latter, that's what we call a clue, right? But you can do all that online in your underwear,
Right.
So it's just incredible, the technology that's available to us today. And I mean, I won't even go look at a property in another state unless I've got a contract on it or I've got an accepted letter of intent. So I wouldn't even bother.
So how are you doing due diligence on those? Just all remote?
Yeah, no. We have boots on the ground anywhere
Okay,
we buy. Okay, and you need to have a local presence, and we use really good third-party property management companies. And I have students bringing me deals. I mean, out of those 1,000 doors, 2 of them were students. 2 of the 4
That's
deals were
great.
students.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have people throwing deals at us, and then I've got lots of people with money that want to place their money. So I'm like in the right place.
Yeah, you're good. Middleman's perfect.
Right. It's a beautiful thing. But we spend a lot of time we know what we're doing, okay? Yeah. There are a lot of people that are watching that have never done this, and that's why I'm telling you, be a specialist. Could you ultimately buy in multiple markets? Yes, once you really understand the business.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you, don't out of the gate. Pick a market, stick with it, learn it, grow there first until you really understand this business before you spread your wings.
That's great advice. Yeah. So I have two final questions for you.
Right.
What are some of your favorite just tools of the trade, softwares that you just couldn't live without or just love?
Well, I can't spell technology, but let me say this. My team and I love Asana and Slack, okay? We use the hell out of Slack. It eliminates email, and Asana is great for project management, so we love those. Beyond that, I'll leave it with those because, again, I'm not the tech person. No.
And Slack is...
No, social... Well, I'm going to say this. As far as technology goes, maximizing social media is like a must-do.
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely.
Adding value in some fashion, like you're doing, like I'm doing. Pick a channel. Become an expert at it, okay? Yep. And a channel that has your clients. So if you're a real estate broker, maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's even Instagram. I don't know. Instagram's a younger demographic. Maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's YouTube, maybe it's Twitter, whatever it is. Use it, master one of them, and kick butt with it to build your brand.
Love that. Yeah. Love that. Social. Asana, which is project management, Slack, which is team messaging. Yeah. We use Slack in our office too. It's cool because you can separate everything, different topics, different departments. They can all talk. It's all saved in there. Yeah. Great tool. So what would you say to someone just looking to get into multifamily, and what would you say to those people?
I would say learn it, okay? Come see me. I don't make a lot of money in my events. It's not about the money. Trust me on that. I love adding value. You'll get that if you listen to my podcast. But learn the business. With or without me, go learn the business, okay? And take action. Don't get caught in analysis paralysis, okay? Make sure you know what it is you want, why you want it. That's why at my events, I focus on mindset. I focus on associating with who you have to become to achieve your goals. I work on pushing through fear, on embracing gratitude, on describing your ideal day so that you can manifest your life into that place. All these things that I work on besides the real estate. It's real estate drinking through a fire hose, but like I get into all that other stuff. But educate yourself, number one, and then take action. Just get out of the comfort zone, go take action. I promise me. When I interview, that's one of the questions I ask. Well, I ask it differently. I say, if you could tell your 20-year-old self something, what would you tell yourself versus what would I tell your listeners? And it's always, I would have started sooner and I would have gone bigger. Almost you can set your watch to it every time. So there's the answer.
So there you go.
There you go.
Go big.
Go big or go home. That's it.
Perfect,
Big
man.
Block Realty, baby.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. Now that we're here at the end of the show, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Stiegl Brewery out of Austria for their grapefruit Radler. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's cool.
And I just really appreciate how passionate you are, how giving you are, how forward you are. Thanks, and brother. Just how genuine you are.
Thank you, brother.
Really class act, and really appreciate everything you're doing. If you like the show, give us a like. If you have any questions, leave a comment. We'll get Rob to
I'll answer it for sure.
To answer those, and go ahead and subscribe to Founders Club, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks a lot, Rob.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Likewise,
Cheers.
brother. Salute, my friend. Awesome.